tell you that all the three results are very consistent, very consistent. They are not exactly the same. Maybe Master Shane can tell us why, but I know it may be due to I just use it for 73 days, and there are a lot of red blood cells in my body, and it takes time for the omega-3 to build up on my cell membrane. And maybe this is why all these three tests has a slight difference, right?
Fantastic, Peter. And again, guys, thank you so much for coming online tonight. We've got a great session tonight with Master Shane and Peter, our country manager up in Hong Kong at Zinzino, Hong Kong. Peter, I'd like to hand it over to you and do the honours of talking about with Master Shane about the balanced oil and the benefits to the human body. Thanks a lot, Peter.
Thank you. So let me quickly share my screen that I just received. Okay, can anyone see my screen okay? So, great. So about 2 weeks ago, I did 3 demonstrations. So I did it for the English version and the Mandarin version and the Cantonese version. So this is the result I received. So let me show every one of you. So let me give you a background. I did the first test last year, but I haven't started using the BalanceOil since August the 1st. That means the moment when I did my second test, I just on the Zinzino BalanceOils for 73 days. So let's see my result. So before all the unhappy faces, you see I am extremely unbalanced and my protection value is 0. I got 0 for my protection value. So after 70 days, you guys ready? Yeah! You see 2.1, 1.9 to 1, just 73 days. I see some of the unhappy face become not so unhappy, and you can use my password to check my scores. You see, what a great improvement to me. So I just used the daily dosage. I didn't overdose myself. I just used daily dosage for 73 days. And you see all these values, my omega-3 profile is all improving in just 2 months of time. I will continue to use this product. And I'm so confident that after 120 days, it will be even better. Okay, so for this evening, I would like to introduce our Master Shane to talk about how Zinzino products can improve our heart function. So Master Shane is studying in University of Chinese University of Hong Kong, majoring in nutritional science, and he has his certificate on medical interpretation. So I don't want to keep you guys waiting. So let's welcome Shane to talk about today's topic, how Zinzino products can improve our heart function. Welcome, Master Shane.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you. Let me share my screen first. Can you see my screen? Okay, awesome. So before I start, please spend some time reading this disclaimer. Okay, thank you for reading it. So let's get started. I am Shane and I am the speaker tonight, and welcome back to Zinzino Basics Week 4. This week we're going to be talking about heart function. If this is your first time here, welcome. And if you're coming back for the second, the third, or even the fourth time, welcome back. So what are we going to talk about tonight? or today for some of you in Europe, today's topic is how does Balance Oil Plus support normal heart function? So here's a rundown of what we're going to talk about tonight or today. First of all, I'll give you some basic information about the heart. Please bear in mind that this is not a comprehensive overview of the circulatory system or the heart or the blood vessels. I am just highlighting some features of the circulatory system which will be relevant to our understanding of how omega-3 oils can help us maintain or support normal heart function. And then we will be talking about what normal heart functions are, and then we'll touch upon some risk factors for some common heart problems. And finally, we will see how omega-3 oils can help us achieve normal heart function. So without further ado, let's get started. So, well, we all know the heart is an amazing organ. It's very small, but it's super powerful. So every minute, it's pumping 5 liters of blood all over our body. And that translates to 2.7 million liters every year. So how much is that? If you look at the picture below, you see an Olympic swimming pool. The volume of it is 2.5 million liters, which means every year you're pumping out blood to your body about the size of an Olympic swimming pool. That is a lot of blood, and that is how powerful our heart is. But that amount is only when you're resting or in your normal state. If you are working out or exercising at your peak state, you would be pumping out 4 times that amount. And all of our blood together constitutes about 8 to 9% of our total body weight. So, like I said, the heart is an amazing organ. It started beating before we were even born, and it will never stop beating until the moment we leave our body. It's a very small organ. Well, not super small, but it's relatively small for its power. It's about the size of a closed fist, as you can see in the picture there, and it weighs, just less than a pound, so it's not very heavy. And contrary to common belief, a lot of people think that our heart is actually located on the left, but no, it's actually right at the center of our chest. But because of certain structures extending a little bit more to the left, we'll talk about that later. So here we see the heart, the structures of the heart. We see 4 chambers here. The 2 upper chambers are called the atria. Singular is atrium, plural is atria, and then the 2 lower chambers are called the ventricles. So we see 4 different colors of blood vessels here. So I'll go through them with you. First of all, deoxygenated blood returns from the body to our heart through the right atrium. The blue, do you see the blue vein? The blue, yeah, the blue vein. So it goes into the right atrium, and then from the right atrium, it goes to the right ventricle, and then it will be pumped through that violet blood vessel into our lungs to pick up oxygen, and then the blood will once again become oxygenated blood, and it will come back to our heart through the orange or yellow blood vessel, which is actually the pulmonary vein, and it goes into the left atrium, and then from the left atrium into the left ventricle, and from here the blood will be pumped to the rest of our body. As you can see on the picture, the wall of the left ventricle is actually much thicker than the right ventricle. In fact, it's 4 times thicker and 4 times more powerful as well. Why is that? Because like I said just now, the right ventricle only needs to pump blood to our lungs, which are relatively close to the heart, but the left ventricle has to pump blood to the rest of the body, which is a much longer distance, which is why it needs a lot more power and pressure. So the muscle here is also stronger, and which also accounts for why some people think our heart is on the left, because it is indeed thicker and stronger on the left, but it's only slightly extending out to the left. It's right in the middle, not really to the on the left. Okay, so let's move on. After so the circulatory system is mainly composed of the heart and the vascular system, which is the blood vessels. So if we take all of our blood vessels out and line them up, they will actually measure at 80,000 kilometers. And how long is that? We have the Earth here. The circumference of the Earth is about 40,000 kilometers, which means that if we line all our blood vessels up together, we can surround the Earth twice. That is a lot of length. That is super, super long, which means we do have a lot of blood vessels in our body because we have a lot of energy needs, and all our tissues, all our cells need oxygen and nutrients. We will now see one particular part or member component of the vascular system, which is the capillary. The capillaries are the smallest blood vessels, and they only the cell wall the wall only contains one cell, which makes it easy for nutrients or oxygen to go out and wastes and carbon dioxide to come in. So every cell in our body is close to a capillary because all cells need energy and oxygen to survive. And in areas where there are more metabolically active cells like the brain, the heart, and kidneys, we have more capillaries there. In areas where the cells are less metabolically active, like the bones, tendons, and joints, there are fewer capillaries there. But throughout our whole body, only the lens and the cornea of our eyes do not have blood supply. They get their nutrition by diffusion. Okay, so let's continue to talk about the capillaries. As we can see here, the diameter of a capillary's lumen is the space, the hollow space inside the capillary, is only slightly larger than one red blood cell. Why is that? What's the significance of it? Well, that means the red blood cell is very close to the wall of the capillary, which makes it much easier for the red blood cells to release oxygen to our body cells and to pick up carbon dioxide and wastes. So it makes it easy for the red blood cells to do gaseous exchange more efficiently. And if we take our blood and we run it through a centrifuge, which separates the different components of our blood, we will see that it will separate roughly into three parts. So this is all our blood, and then go through, we run it through a centrifuge, and then you see three parts here. And this is an actual sample, test tube of we see the blood here and then separate it into three parts. So the heavier is on the top, the red blood cells sink to the sorry, not top, bottom, 45% by volume, and then on top is the plasma, the liquid part, about 55%, and then in the middle, only about 1% is the white blood cells. So let's have a look at let's have an overview, a bird's eye view of the whole circulatory system. So we have the heart, we have the lungs, and we have the blood vessels here. And the blue ones are the veins and the red ones are the arteries. So red means that they are full of oxygen and nutrients. Oxygenated is what we call it. So now let's talk about normal heart functions. What does the heart do? The heart actually has many functions, but mainly there are four. First of all, it pumps oxygenated blood to body parts. As we can see here, it goes out from the aorta. So, oh, it should be here, oxygen to upper body. It goes out from the aorta to the rest of the body, and then it also pumps hormones and other chemicals to different body parts because we need other things as well, hormones and other chemical messengers. And it also receives deoxygenated blood, which means blood that has given up their oxygen from the body parts, and then the part pumps it to the lungs for oxygenation, to pick up oxygen again. And it also carries metabolic wastes to the liver and to the kidneys for breakdown or for detoxification. And finally, it also maintains our blood pressure. Okay, so we understand the main functions of the heart. Now let's take a look at the main functions of our blood. It has three major functions. First of all, transportation. As we already saw, our blood transports oxygen, carbon dioxide, different nutrients, and it also picks up metabolic wastes and other chemicals as well. And secondly, it provides protection for us. In our blood, there are components called platelets, which stop bleeding if we sustain an injury or a trauma, and together with the immune cells and antibodies, it can also help us fight infection and protect us. And then finally, homeostasis basically just means maintaining a balanced or stable internal environment. So, including pH, the acidity level in our blood, temperature, and fluid balance, like the electrolytes. Okay, this is clot formation, and we are highlighting it because it plays a very important role in the proper functioning of a heart and the blood vessels, and we will be revisiting it again and again in later slides. So, like I said before, in our blood we have platelets, which have a very important role because we see here there is an injury, a trauma, and then the platelets will flood to this area to basically just to form a clot, so to stop further bleeding. And you can see the platelets as the paramedics of the bloodstream. They're usually the first guys to get to go there. So this clot formation stops further bleeding. Like we have been saying times and times again, all these functions have to be balanced. So clot formation is good for us, but on the other hand, there could be some unwanted clots in our blood vessels, like emboli. If they are allowed to move around in our body, in our blood vessels, they could be fatal depending on where they end up. And we'll learn more about them later. So now that we have some basic understanding of the proper functioning, let's talk about the risk factors, what contributes to dysfunction of a heart or the vascular system. Many people say that cardiovascular diseases are like invisible killers. And why is that? Because more than 70% of blood flow must be stopped before tissue damage becomes a problem or before we can see any symptoms, which means by the time we actually see symptoms or by the time they present themselves, some form of damage has already been done, or it might be too late for certain people if they're not living a very healthy lifestyle. So we'll now talk about the different risk factors that contribute to dysfunctioning of the heart and the circulatory system. First of all is high blood pressure. This is a chart from the American Heart Association, and they define high blood pressure as having systolic pressure larger than 130. Systolic pressure basically means when the ventricle contracts, then the pressure will be higher. So if it exceeds 130, then this person has high blood pressure, or when it relaxes, the pressure is still above 80, so it's or 130 or 80, then this person still is diagnosed as having high blood pressure. And high blood pressure can cause abnormal thickening of the heart muscles. It could even cause kidney failure if left unchecked, or even brain damage. There are many reasons leading to high blood pressure. One of them is narrowing of blood vessels, as we will learn later. But then in 95% of cases, no specific cause is found. So what can we do to lower our risk for high blood pressure? We can do regular aerobic exercise or cardio exercise. Maybe 30 minutes of exercise where you will sweat is enough. And then you can start a weight reduction program if you are overweight or obese, and you can also limit your intake of salt, because salt is sodium chloride, and sodium contributes to high blood pressure. But before you start any of these, please first consult your doctor before starting a health regime. So the second thing that contributes, that is a risk factor, is poor blood flow or poor blood supply. What are the reasons for poor blood supply? If your blood contains a very high level of fats, like high serum triglyceride, or if it doesn't have, an adequate level of high density lipoprotein cholesterol, HDL cholesterol, which is commonly known as good cholesterol. What does that mean? So HDL cholesterol is like the cleaner of our vascular system. It goes around our body, and when it sees cholesterol, it picks it up and then it takes it back to our liver for breakdown, or for reuse, or usually for breakdown, and then it will be excreted out of our body. So in a way, it lowers the cholesterol in the bloodstream. And poor blood flow can also cause plaque formation, as we will learn more about later. Plaque could be dead immune cells, fatty tissues, or platelets, or other cells in our bloodstream. And it could be caused by a lack of oxygenated blood. Okay, so as we saw earlier on, blood clot could obstruct the flow of blood, causing poor blood flow or supply, and especially during prolonged muscular inactivity, like on a long haul flight, or if you sit at the office all day without moving at all. Clots in your veins could pose a problem for you. It could block circulation. If it's a small embolism or a small clot or block, it could cause localized cell death. If it's a larger one, it could be fatal. If it blocks circulation in your brain, then you will have stroke. And if it's in the heart, like the coronary arteries are actually the blood vessels that supply oxygen and nutrients to the heart itself. If you have blocked coronary arteries, you will have angina pectoris, chest pain, that usually results when you are doing strenuous physical activity, exercise, but you don't have sufficient blood supply to the heart, because when you are exercising, your heart needs to work harder to pump more oxygen and blood to the body. So please, again, if you start any new exercise or nutrition regime, please always consult your doctor first. And like I said, if it blocks the heart vessels in the heart, it could cause a heart attack. And there are two very common symptoms of a heart attack. Well, the first one I'm sure most people know about it, is chest pain. But then it turns out that the second most common symptom is denial, because a lot of people simply refuse to believe that they could have a heart attack. They just don't know that. Like we mentioned earlier, um, these conditions don't actually present themselves until the flow of blood is obstructed by at least 70 or 75%, which means by the time you see symptoms, it's already quite late into the development of the disease, which is why a lot of people are in denial. They think, I'm just having indigestion, I'm not really having a heart attack, which, is counterintuitive, because it might delay visiting a doctor. Okay, so the third risk factor that we want to talk about is high heart rate. We talked about high blood pressure, but when your heart rate is raised, it does not necessarily mean that your blood pressure will also be raised. Because if you're a healthy individual and your blood vessels are healthy and responsive, they should be able to dilate, which means they will widen to allow more blood to flow through. Because when it widens, when a blood vessel widens, there's more space, then the blood pressure will go down. But this is we're only talking about healthy individuals here. We'll talk about the inability to dilate later slides. So, like we said earlier, when you exercise, your heart speeds up so more blood can reach your muscles for your energy needs, for your oxygen needs. And the more you exercise, the more you train your heart muscles, and the stronger your heart will become. And then, as your heart gets stronger, your resting heart rate will go down, which because as it gets stronger, you will be more. It will become more. It will become a more efficient pump, which means it does not need to contract as many times to pump the same amount of blood to the body, which here we see, if you have a high resting heart rate, it means your blood isn't working efficiently, which is why it's a risk factor. So the fourth risk factor is abnormal heart rhythm. What does that mean? If you have abnormal heart rhythm, we know that the heart rate changes, but then if yours changes erratically, it could cause unstable or fluctuating supply of blood, oxygen, and nutrients to your body tissues. We know our body tissues need oxygen and nutrients all the time. They do not rest. Even when we're sleeping, they're still alive, which means they need nutrients all the time. But if you're not sending, stable supply of these vital nutrients to them, it could cause problems. It could interfere with the ability of the heart to pump blood effectively. There are some symptoms associated with abnormal heart rhythm, such as fatigue or weakness, lightheadedness or fainting, or shortness of breath. Because you're not getting enough oxygen, your body will automatically want to breathe more frequently to get more oxygen into the system, or chest pain, or even anxiety. So these are the symptoms of abnormal heart rhythm. Okay, the fifth risk factor is inflammation. We have been talking about chronic inflammation many times throughout this month, and inflammation could actually affect heart muscles or the heart's electrical system. The electrical system determines how fast or how strongly the heart will contract and pump blood out of the blood to the body. And inflammation can also reduce the heart's ability to pump. It can cause abnormal heart rhythm. So now you're probably able to see that a lot of these risk factors are interconnected. Inflammation can cause abnormal heart rhythm, which we just talked about, and it can also weaken the heart, so blood supply to body parts is reduced, which was one of the first risk factors we talked about, and it can also cause clots in the heart. So now we've come to the most important part, which is how do omega-3 oils help? How do they help us maintain or support a normal heart function? So let's review some of the health claims that have been approved by the European Food Safety Authority. So there are three relevant to what we're talking about here today. First, EPA and DHA contribute to the normal function of the heart. We'll see more about that later. DHA and EPA contribute to the maintenance of normal blood triglyceride levels and normal blood pressure. So here, this picture here is a summary of the different mechanisms that omega-3 oils have on our body to help us maintain a good heart function. But we're not going to talk about all the details here because we simply don't have the time. I have summarized them into three categories. First, omega-3 oils can improve blood flow. Secondly, they can enhance the efficiency of the heart. Thirdly, they can reduce inflammation and oxidation. So we'll talk about them in details now. So improving blood flow, first of all, it can decrease omega-3 fatty acids can decrease triglycerides, the fatty acids in our blood. So through two processes, you don't have to remember these names. They might be a bit intimidating, but I have translated that into layman term for you. So it it acts through a process called de novo lipogenesis. Lipo means fat, genesis, creation. So it's actually the process that converts carbohydrates like sugar into fat. So omega-3 fatty acids can decrease the rate of this process, which means less carbohydrates will be converted into fat, which also means there will be less triglycerides. And then the second mechanism is it will lower the production of triglycerides in the liver through lowering the enzyme activity that is essential for making triglyceride. So through these two processes, triglycerides can be decreased in our blood. Okay, according to the American Heart Association, they have made a conclusion. They said that we conclude that prescription omega-3 fatty acids, whether EPA or plus DHA or EPA only at a dose of 4 grams per day, are clinically useful for reducing triglycerides, which we just saw, after any underlying causes are addressed. And the European Food Safety Authority also recommends 2 grams of EPA and DHA per day to maintain normal blood concentrations of triglycerides. Okay, the second way that omega-3 fatty acids can help to improve blood flow is by reducing blood pressure, which we saw earlier on. Fish oil can increase nitric oxide production. So nitric oxide is a vasodilator. What it means is it can widen a blood vessel. So we saw earlier on that when a vessel widens, the blood pressure will drop because there's more space for the blood to flow through. So it will improve something called flow-mediated dilation. If you've ever done some lab test, you might have come across this term, but if you haven't, it doesn't matter. It basically just means the widening of artery when blood flow increases. When there's more blood, the artery will widen. That's what it means here. And it's actually a very useful measurement of how healthy our blood vessels are because it's non-invasive. You don't have to pierce through your skin or do anything that harms the body. And with improved flow mediated dilation, you will get more oxygen supply to peripheral tissues, which means your body tissues will be better nourished and well, there will be more nutrients available for them. Another way that omega-3 fatty acids can help reduce blood pressure is through a process called, well, it is through improving the arterial compliance. You don't have to be intimidated again. It simply means that, so compliance means that the degree to which a container, so in this case, the blood vessel, experiences pressure or force without disruption, which means how strong the blood vessel, the artery wall is when it is under pressure from the blood or from increased blood flow. So it's directly related to how strong and how resilient and also how elastic the blood vessels are. So the higher the compliance, the more elastic the blood vessels, and the less stiff the arteries, the blood vessels will be. And the significance is, if the blood vessel is elastic, it can um, adapt itself to the constant changes, well, not constant, but then maybe sudden changes of blood pressure or blood flow, and it will still be able to resume its original thickness or diameter. So it's how flexible the blood vessels are, which is very important for our health. Okay, and another way that omega-3 fatty acids can modify or can help support better blood flow is by reducing blood clotting, which we have already talked about a few times. So we see here, according to this study here, omega-3 fatty acids are commonly considered to have anti-thrombotic, which means anti-clotting effects based on increased bleeding times at very high doses, like 15 grams per day. But you don't have to worry about it, because I have heard people saying that they're worried that taking more fish oil can cause bleeding. So this is by the same author. They have made this observation: no excess clinical bleeding risk has been seen in randomized clinical trials of fish or fish oil consumption. And we're talking about like people who are at higher risk, like who? So even among people who were undergoing surgery or percutaneous, which means piercing through the skin intervention, and or also taking aspirin or warfarin. Warfarin is a blood thinner. So even with these interventions, there was still no excess clinical bleeding. So as long as you keep your daily intake within the recommended limit, you will be fine. It will be safe. So don't worry about excessive bleeding. So another way that omega-3 fatty acids can help support better blood flow is by reducing buildup of cholesterol in arteries. So like we talked earlier, HDL, the good cholesterol of our vascular system, omega-3 fatty acids can actually increase good cholesterols, which means there will be more of these cleaners swimming around our body, picking up cholesterols and sending them to the liver for breakdown and excretion. And according to Columbia University's Institute of Human Nutrition, omega-3 fatty acids can inhibit entry of bad cholesterol into arteries, which means there will be less cholesterol in the blood vessels, because omega-3 fatty acids can actually inhibit. They are acting like a security guy for us, stopping these bad cholesterol from entering our arteries. And then there is also another mechanism, so it can decrease something called lipoprotein lipase. It's a molecule that traps the bad cholesterol in arterial wall. So if we get rid of this, that means there is less of a likelihood that the bad cholesterols could be trapped in our arterial wall. So we see here two blood vessels, one with plaque. Plaques, like we said earlier, are deposits of dead cells, immune cells, white blood cells, or fatty tissues, or even old red blood cells or platelets. So omega-3 fatty acids have been found to inhibit plaque progression, which means it can stop it from getting worse by decreasing the growth rate, and it can also increase plaque stability. What it means is when a plaque is unstable, it could rupture and cause other cardiovascular problems. So by increasing its stability, it is safer for us, and at least it could prolong it could delay any complications, and during this time we have more time to engage in other healthy activities to clean up our blood vessels and to become healthy again. So those are the ways to improve blood flow or oxygen supply. And now we'll talk about how to improve the efficiency of the heart. So first of all, by reducing heart rate, omega-3 fatty acids can reduce our heart rate by increasing ventricular filling time. If you still remember, the heart has 4 chambers. The 2 lower chambers are called ventricles. So by allowing more time for the ventricles to fill up, which means more blood can get into the ventricles. And with each contraction, the blood is actually sending more blood to the rest of our body, which means it's actually more efficient because every time it contracts, it's sending more blood, more nutrients, more oxygen to the body instead of having to contract more frequently. It actually becomes more efficient. And it can also enhance our heart rate variability. So we see here, usually when we talk about our heart rate, we see here, the first heart rate, the first beat is 0.859 seconds. So it's actually measured at 70 beats per minute. But if we look at the third one, it's 83, which means that every heartbeat is actually different. So when we measure our heart rate like this, it's only an average of our heart rate within certain 60 seconds. If I take my pulse this 60 seconds, and if I take it the next 60 seconds, it could be different. Because as we can see, even consecutive heartbeats are very different. So a more meaningful way is to measure the heart rate variability. It's a measure of our beat-to-beat changes in our heart rate, and it's also a marker of our physiological resilience, how resilient we are. It reflects our ability to adapt effectively to stress. It could be emotional stress or physiological stress. And we see on the bottom here, on the left, this is low heart rate variability. It's all jagged here, the heart rate. But on the right, you see sine waves here. So this is good and high heart rate variability. So a low heart rate variability is associated, well, it basically means your sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems are out of sync. Layman terms, which means you're trying to relax and get excited at the same time. So they're fighting each other. It's like having one foot on the gas pedal and the other on the brake. So it's causing damage to the car, and you're causing damage to your body as well. And it can also, like I said, how does it if you enhance the heart rate variability, you will be able to improve the vagal tone. But we'll not go into details about this today. But these are easier to understand. You can decrease the heart rate. You can widen the blood vessels, which means lower the blood pressure, and you can reduce inflammation as well. So also, you can increase what omega-3 fatty acids can increase cardiac filling. Like I said before, more blood can get into the ventricle, and then in one go it will be pumped to the rest of the body, meaning it's more efficient, and it can develop the heart will become more elastic as well because of this. Oh, and this is very important. It also means your requirements for oxygen will be lower, even though you are performing at the same level. And then the last thing is omega-3 fatty acids can reduce inflammation and oxidative stress in our body. There are a few markers here, like C-reactive protein and some pro-inflammatory cytokines and eicosanoids, and it can also lower oxidative stress markers like F2 isoprostanes. So these are the various ways that omega-3 fatty acids can help us maintain or support good heart function. So this is the end of my report today, and I hope you've learned something useful for you. And thank you very much for joining with me today. So I'll hand it back to Rob and Peter. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Master Shane. Truly appreciate it. And what a wealth of information. And it's just great to get a great understanding of how the heart function works and that whole blood system works, and how this incredible oil, the balanced oil, is so critical with the EPA, DHA, and the polyphenols that are in this product. But the core that we heard from Peter at the beginning was this balance test. Guys, you got to get yourself tested is the number one priority before you start taking the balanced oil. Absolutely critical. And as I say, Peter, we're just holding the whole omega industry accountable. That's all we're doing at the end of the day. Pete, any closing comments as we close out and we come back with the Chinese session?
Yes, Rob, thank you. And thank you so much, Master Shane, for giving us this information. So for those of you who come in early, so you know my second test result. So I did my first test last year and my result was very shocking, 22.4 to 1. And then I used the balance oil for 2 months, about 2 months. And then I did my second test and my second test score is 1.9 to 1. So this is the number telling me that I had a lot of improvement. But I want you guys to look at your fingernails. I look at my fingernails in recent time. I found that the color underneath my fingernails is now is pink. So that means my blood circulation has been improved. So let me give you my final comments on Master Shane's topic. So imagine your blood vessel, your heart system is a very long highway. So how long? It's 2 times. If you go around the earth, it takes you 2 times. It's how long our blood vessel. So we have some delivery truck. So deliver the good nutrients to all your different part of your body. And you have some garbage truck to get rid of your waste from your body. So it is 80,000 kilometers long, this highway. So I can't afford single day or even single minute or single second that there is a traffic jam in this highway. So who is going to take care of this highway? It's not your government, it's not your doctor, it's not even your wife or husband, it's yourself. You need to take your daily dosage of omega-3. So it contains EPA and DHA. So it is already approved by the authority. It helps to maintain a good heart function, a good cardiovascular function. So make sure after you listen to this webinar, if you are using Zinzino products, continue to use it. If you are not, please talk to one of the leaders here and they will teach you how to get the product from Zinzino and you are going to enjoy it. So until the next time, thank you for attending this webinar. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys. See you back soon in 5 minutes for the Chinese session. 5 minutes Chinese, and then we'll be back Cantonese version 1 hour later. Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.